Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Remedies and Realities. I hope you're loving the content. I also hope that you are subscribing, liking, and sharing if you do like the content, because according to the insights that I get on my video platforms, only about 10% of the people who watch my shows are actually subscribed. So it would really help my numbers to grow if you would actually hit the subscribe button and then like and share. Thank you for your feedback and thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to episode 12 of Remedies and Realities. I'm your host, Angie Blake. With me here today, I am very excited to introduce you to Mary Wells. And Mary is running for state representative of Texas in District 58. So we are super excited to get her in that district. We know that there is a lot of change that needs to take place. And Mary has a very interesting background as to what brought you here to where we are
Yes,
today, right, Mary?
yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So tell us a little bit about what happened in the past that made you think that you need to bring these changes to state representative.
Okay, so in 2018, how it all originated was in 2018, my daughter was killed while being trafficked. Um, at that point, we had went to our state representative a year later and asked if we could have some help because I had just learned what human trafficking was. And I was a trained parent because I was also a foster parent. So if we didn't know what human trafficking was, no one else would know. And that's the way I felt about it because I didn't only have children of my own, but we were also foster parents. So we went to go see our then state representative Dwayne Burns and asked for help getting a law passed would make it mandatory. So that's where we came up with the Julia Wells Act, which is making human trafficking awareness mandatory in driver's education so that anyone of that age will be aware of it and learn about human trafficking.
And so there was just particular information that had to be presented to the kids at that
Yes,
age, at that.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am. While they're taking their driver's education course.
Okay. And that was 2018.
It went into we went in 2021 for
Oh,
that. Yeah,
okay.
because it was later in the session, so we weren't able to get anything at that point. So we had to
Okay.
wait for 2018 or 21. And then in 23 we went back and that was put on SB 1831. And SB 1831 was also part of no trafficking zone to where it made human trafficking a first degree felony in school zones.
It
And
was not a first degree felony.
no, no.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So they made it to where it was first degree felony in school zones, and then and there was a lot of laws that were on that bill, for human trafficking and keeping, underage people 21 and older to go into a sexually oriented business. And they had to, there was just a whole lot of laws that went onto that to SB 1831. And Julia Wells Act was added onto that. And then in 2023, we went back and we got human trafficking a first degree felony in RTCs and foster care homes and foster care facilities. And then this past year, I was meeting with a representative from the Attorney General's office about my daughter's case. And she says, "Is there anything we can do for you?" And, you know, I said, "Yeah, Can you get me a meeting with,
Absolutely.
yeah, can you get me a meeting with Senator Paxton?
Yeah.
And yeah, and so it was at that point Senator Paxton's office called me. I was very excited to hear from him.
Yeah.
And that's where SB 1212 was born. And
And what
then
is SB 1212? What does that have?
it makes first degree felony across the board in the state of Texas for human trafficking.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, wow. And so how long had you been a foster parent when this all happened?
Um, quite a few years, actually, quite a few years. I can't
For
remember
a
exactly.
while.
Yes.
Okay. And so you knew the term human trafficking, but what did you think it was?
Somebody pulling up in a white van and taking you back,
There you go.
honestly. Yes. And I don't know why the white van,
Right.
but that's where we
No,
were.
that was my when I grew up, and I grew up in a very small town, that's what we were supposed to be scared of. Don't get in, any, strange vehicles or anything like that. And it always kind of was a white van, and
Yeah.
that's absolutely not the way
No,
it is.
no, not at all. No.
So
My daughter was
explain.
actually trafficked by someone she trusted, trafficked by a friend that she considered her friend.
And so do you know what percentage it is of people that are actually trafficked by people that they know?
Most of them are.
It's a huge
Well,
percent.
I say most of them are. They either feel like they know them because they've met them on the internet, but it was somebody that they trust, whether
Right.
it's family, someone they met on the internet, a friend, something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's typically not just a stranger pulling over going, here, little girl, you want some candy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not.
that's a
It's not
misnomer. And
necessarily that at all. Yeah.
no, and also another big misnomer is that it only happens, across the border or across in another country, or they
Yes.
only take the kids to another country and sell
Right.
them there. And that's also not.
No, no. So we actually went to go see um, the movie that came out, The Sound of Freedom for human trafficking. And the girls that were in front of us literally told their dad, said, "See, I don't know why you made us come see this. It doesn't happen here." And I'm just like, and the dad looked at me like a deer in headlights because I was wearing my human trafficking shirt, Joey Wells Act, and it said "Stop Human Trafficking." And I said, "Do you mind?" And he was like, "No, please." And so I explained to her, I said, "No, it doesn't just happen across seas." I said, "It doesn't just happen in other towns. It doesn't happen in other states. It happened right here in Cleburne. It happened in our town." And those
Cleburne,
girls were
that's tiny too.
yes,
That's Johnson County, right?
yes, yeah. So they were just kind of like, wow. And so I explained to them, what had happened. And these young ladies, they were very receptive to listening, and they were in shock that it happened here. But I feel like that may have opened their eyes just knowing it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. So that was a good
Well,
thing. That was a good thing to happen.
I love that you're kind of getting into this. Later this week, I have an interview with a well-known singer, and her name is Ilanka Deaton, and she was trafficked in the music industry, and it
Oh,
was
wow.
her music promoter, right? And she had been working with him for a year, and nothing like because they build that trust. They're very patient with
Yes.
building that trust and getting the parents to trust and getting the kids to trust so that they can be alone with him. And after a year, finally, the situation came up where she alone went with him to, wherever she was supposed to go practice or whatever. And that was the first time that he raped her. And she also said the same thing that you did. It's not taking kids across the seas and selling them. It's generally somebody that you know and trust.
Exactly.
And then they want to threaten, don't tell anybody or we'll,
Yeah.
kill your parents or we'll hurt you in some other way. And there's the threats that happen. How old
Right.
was your daughter?
She had just turned 18 that December prior to her death. She had just graduated from high school that December as well. She didn't actually graduate, that she had finished, and she wasn't going to graduate until May. And but she had autism, and so her graduating early was a huge accomplishment for her.
Yeah.
And but she was very trusting. That was the
Yeah.
whole thing. And I can't tell you to this day, I don't know how she actually met the lady that sold her, the original lady that sold her. I don't know how she met her. Um, that's one thing I probably won't know until we go to trial. But I don't know how she met her still to this day. And I haven't asked the question, you know, but I do know what she got for her. I do know that information. But the one thing I cannot tell you that I'm still just, I don't know how this happened, is how she actually met this lady. But Julia did trust her. And even though myself and the people that were close to her, like Julia, we don't know this person. I don't like this. We don't know her. She was always, Mom, why are you worrying? Why are you always worrying? Well, that's my job. That's what I do. I worry. Sorry, it's
Mm-hmm.
not my way. And so it was heartbreaking. Um, to know that she went with someone that she truly trusted, because I don't think Julia would have went if she didn't truly trust that person.
Right. And so it's okay. So a couple of things. So this person is going to trial. So that's good. At least there's going to be that. I mean, it seems like a very long time if it happened in 2018, but
It
I
has been
guess,
it has been crazy. We had, that happened, then we had the pandemic,
yes.
and everything just kept putting it off and off and off and off and off. And they
Ugh,
went up with the turnover at the Attorney General's office as well as at the DA's office, and it just got prolonged.
wow. And
Yes.
then another thing is, it was a woman. And so a lot of girls think,
Mhm.
number one, it can't
Women are
happen to
safe.
boys, and it can happen to boys, and that you're only going to be trafficked or brought in or groomed by a man if you're a
Right.
girl. And that's not the case
No.
either.
Mm-mm. Not at
Wow.
all.
Just
No.
so many things that people need to be aware of. You have
Yes,
to just
exactly.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, are there other bills that you want to get brought in? What do you want to do once you get elected into as a state rep?
So this past year, we didn't just go for human trafficking bills. That was a big portion. That was my main thing, was getting the SB 1212. And it's kind of crazy that I promised my spouse, my husband, I said, listen, if we can get SB 1212, if we can get human trafficking, that's what I told him at the very beginning. I said, I'm going to go back this session. We're going to get human trafficking, a first degree felony across the state of Texas. And once that's done, I will literally put the brakes on going back and forth to Austin, trying to get these bills, because I would feel at that point that I would had accomplished what Julia would want me to accomplish. And he's like, okay. And he was all behind me already. It was crazy. We were like, okay. Well, then at the end of it, um, and bills that didn't get brought in that should have been passed. They should have went all the way through, did not. So at that point, some powers that be, that's what I call them, is the powers that
Y-
be, some of the local people come to me, and not just from my community, not just from my town, but the other town that's in District 58. And they had asked if I would consider running for state representative. And of course, I was like, okay. A lady actually had said, when I was going down to go testify for SB 1212, she goes, you know what? I'm going to pray you into that position. And I said, into what position? And she said, into state representative. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. That's not going to happen. You
Famous last words.
know, I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that. But, no, I'm not a politician. That's why I told her I'm not a politician. And she goes, well, we don't need politicians.
That's right.
And
We
so,
don't.
yeah, and so I went down, I testified, and then I had been asked later, because that was in March, whenever I was going down there back and forth,
Of
and
this year.
yes, of this year,
Okay.
March, April, and May, yeah. And then I hadn't even thought about it after she said that, and then people started coming to me and asking me, hey, would you consider running for state rep? the first thing I did was call our previous state rep. And I said, Miss Burns, are you going to run for state representative again? He said, no. I said, okay. And I said, well, I've been asked to run. And he encouraged me. He said, I think that's a good idea. He said, you're ready for that. So that was some words of encouragement. And then I went straight to our other state representative now, to Helen. And I said, Helen, I've been asked to run. And she encouraged me. And she said, well, you're ready, you know. And so she encouraged me to do so. And then I went to the bill signing, and I was trying to make up my mind, and I was praying. I called my mom and I said, Mom, you need to pray. And she said, what for? And I told her I'd been asked to run for state representative, and she said, okay. And I said, I just need guidance. I need prayer for guidance. And I said, I'm going to pray and I'm going to talk to the family. She said, I think you should talk to your kids and see where they feel about it. We had a family meeting, we had a family lunch, and I told them that I had been asked to run, and they were like, okay, go ahead, you know. And so, Mom, you're down there anyway, you may as well, you know. And you have, I don't think you're finished. It's one of them told me, she said, I didn't think you were finished anyway. And I said, okay. And because some of the bills I put through this year were not just for human trafficking, they were child safety bills, you
Yeah.
know, keeping safety zones outside of in the county, having safety zones set up so that, because right now in the state of Texas, if you live in the county and there is a school, if your school is out in the county, a registered sex offender, no matter if it's a level 1, 2, 3, red, green, or yellow dot, can live right next door to that school.
If the school is what? If it's out like in a
It's in the
county?
county. If it's not in the city limits, if it's in the county. And we have schools in our district that are out in the county. A lot of people do. And it's
Yeah.
unbelievable how many counties, how many schools in the count in the state of Texas have schools out in the county. And a registered sex offender is allowed to live right next door to that school.
Oh my gosh.
They are also allowed to live in RV parks that have playgrounds. So because they're out in the county. So that was the big one that this year they had tried to put that through for several years, and someone brought it to me and said, what are we doing wrong? And I read over it and I looked at it and I said, well, we need to take the green dot sex offenders like Romeo and Juliet's, those stories, we need to take those out. I said, but the hard ones we need to keep in. We did that and we got the law changed, and it went further this year than it had ever made it. And it made it through subcommittee, and it went to a representative's desk, and it sat there, did nothing. And it was there for a month and a half. When I called the day that I follow these bills like step by step. The day that it hit his desk, I called his office, talked to his chief of staff. They said, well, he is all for this. He is ready to roll. We knew that we were going to have pushback, but they said that he was really for this. And the same thing with another bill that we had put through, which was the same as SB 1212, but it was 3231. We had put that one through, and we're being told that the state representative won't move it. The state representative won't move it. They won't move it. Well, we found out later that other things was happening, and it wasn't that they weren't moving it. So that kind of, had me upset for a while there. But after that, I just told my husband, I said, things just keep pushing me into running. And so I made up my mind, and I called my mom and I said, well, Mom, I've made up my mind. I said, God's opening all these doors. And so I just feel like it's in my heart. I said, I've made up my mind. This is how the conversation went. I said, hey, Mom, I made up my mind. She said, yes. And she goes, about what? And I said, about running for state representative. And she says, well, I already know the answer, but you go ahead and tell me what you think. And I'm like, yeah,
It's
okay.
mom. Of
Yeah. And I said, well, I think I'm going to do it. And she says, well, I know you are.
course you are.
God already told me that you were going to do it. And she said, you're good. And but right before I called my mom, my stepsister had sent a message that she gave me a message that said, God doesn't equip the call, or God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called, is what she
That's
told me.
yes.
And I was like, okay, okay. And then I got another message that said, hey, God already factored in your stupidity
Yes. I love that one.
when he called you to do
He
this.
already knows.
Yeah, because I'm not a politician. I had doubts. And I know that I'm up against a whole lot of money that I don't have. But I said, okay. And someone asked me on a podcast like yours, says, well, she has all of this money and she has this and she has that. So what do you have? And I said, I've got God. That, and that's all I need.
Who can
So
be against me,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I've got God. So, and my mind was made up at that point. I was doing it.
Oh, I have so many questions.
Go ahead.
Um, First, just say this is just a 101. What is the outline? What is the job description of a state rep? What will the actual job be once you get in there?
So, what state representatives do is they help make laws. They write laws, they help get them passed through, they vote on laws. And this is the day-to-day thing. They're lawmakers.
That is excellent. So when you first decided, I'm certain that you had to do a lot of research to find out all the big gaps that are missing in Texas that made you start writing bills. What
Yes.
what was the first step? Obviously, in your mind, you had to go, first of all, is human trafficking? And that needs to be distributed and everybody needs to know that.
Yes.
How do you go about then writing a law? Did you just contacted your state rep and the people in your
Yes.
district?
Yes. I contacted our state representative at that time and I said, hey, this needs to be in law. We need to figure out something.
And was
And
he aware of the big gaps that you had found? Like the things that needed to go into law that weren't there?
no, so well, yes and no. He knew that there was an issue, but he didn't realize how big of an issue. He knew that there was other organizations that were dealing with it, but he even learned a lot himself that year. Yeah.
Nice. And so, how has your life changed, both for you and your husband as parents, but also as children? Because you kind of always have children in your house. Are you still a foster family?
No, not any longer.
Oh,
No.
you're not. You have
Yeah.
other children in the home, right?
Yes. Well, they're not children anymore. All of our kids are grown, but we do have grandchildren.
Okay.
And so,
Yes. So,
and
how
that's
has
something
life
else that's
changed?
different.
Yes, what's
I'm
changed?
very picky. I look at every little thing, like my surroundings. I'm constantly paying attention to my surroundings, especially whenever I have my grandkids with me. I'm careful of what they're watching on television, what they're on the internet. I'm I'm a smother is what I am. And so the year after Julia had died, Gwen, which is our youngest daughter, she did not stand a chance. I'm telling you now, she had no chance. I
And
followed
how
her.
old was Gwen?
She was 17, and yeah, I followed her to work. It was crazy. She was 16 when Julia died, but I would follow Gwen to work. We would watch her walk into work. We would watch her leave work. So that's how I found out about human trafficking, actually, though, is because she was captain of her dance team. Gwen was. And the next year, I knew school was coming back. I knew that I could not be with her all the time. And I was really kind of freaking out. And so I got somebody to come in and do a self protection course for her and her dance team. And anybody was able to take it. It didn't matter who they were. Even if they weren't on the dance team, we were going to allow them to come and take it. But it was self defense just to learn. And they start talking about human trafficking and what it was. And when I left that self defense course, I went straight to my husband and I said, "Oh my God, if we didn't know about this, and we're trained parents, other people don't know about it either." I said, "We've
Mm-hmm.
got to get this message out." And that's when that happened. That's when I
Is
learned
this
about trafficking.
Is this a class and information that's required for foster parents now in order to become? Oh, it needs to be. Oh, it needs to be.
It does. So yes. And whenever I was going for getting kids educated about it, the detective from Dallas County, Detective Cheney, he called and he said, Miss Wells, when you're up there testifying at this, or if you can't get it in now, can you get it in later? But I think that all police officers should be trained in human trafficking because before
Police officers are not trained in it? Police officers?
they it's an elective that they can elect. And I think now they have to be trained in it, but before it was not because it wasn't talked about. It wasn't something that was big on the radar, if that makes sense. Because like I said, I didn't know what it was.
I don't know if you saw the interview that I did with Doc Pete Chambers, who's running for governor of Texas.
Yes.
He's huge into anti-human trafficking. He's been doing it for years on the border and just all over Texas. So he's huge on that, and he intends to make a lot of changes when he gets in regarding human trafficking too. So he's somebody that you probably would be working closely with. But he gave what is considered a very conservative number, but the official number of missing children per year, 300,000. That's super conservative. He's guessing probably about twice that,
Yeah.
but just the number that they put out there is
And a lot of
that's
people
a
don't
lot.
understand the number they put out there are the ones that are actually they've been called in, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Been reported.
Been
Yes,
reported.
that's right. And I mean, even foster, ch- many foster children and all kinds of children are not reported. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's sad. It really is sad.
It is sad, and it is just an issue and a problem that is so much bigger than what people can wrap their heads around. Like they
It
just
is.
don't, just like you had to think to yourself, this could never happen to me. How did it happen to me? But it can
Right.
impact so many families and have so many ripple effects. Because it's not just across the oceans and in other countries that it happens right here next door.
Right.
This is what Ilanka said, when she would go to school, everybody's like, "Oh, you're living the life. You're like this famous singer." And she was just thinking to herself, if you only knew, she said, your next door neighbor can be having this happen and you would never even know. Like these
Exactly.
kids had no idea.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
oh, it's just a horrible,
It's
horrible.
heartbreaking. Yes.
It is heartbreaking. And yes, we need people who are not politicians. And see, Doc Pete Chambers is not a politician, and he's going in. And I just interviewed another friend who is, she is running for, she's running for, she's in Alabama, so she's not in Texas. But all this influx of people who are just
Yeah.
your normal people who are not politicians, but they know things need to be done and they know it's up to us to do it. We can't
Yes.
rely on the politicians anymore because they're not doing their jobs.
Mm-mm. No, you're right. They're not. They're not.
No.
So,
So it excites me anytime I see anybody who is just stepping up to the plate and they're like, nobody's going to do it, so I'm going to do it. And you don't, I mean, we don't know what you're in for, but like you said, God is with you.
yes.
See, this is your path. You feel it in your heart and your soul. And all of the people that I've spoken to have been directed by God. And I mean, you have to
Yeah.
trust that.
Exactly.
What are you
Exactly.
going to do?
Exactly. Exactly.
I've tried not listening to God and not doing what he told me, and it just so
Doesn't work for you. Yeah. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't go very well. It doesn't go your way. Yeah.
no, it does not. So you have to give in and just do it. Just
Yes.
do what he's
Yes. Yes.
saying.
Yes. Definitely.
Oh my gosh. Wow, your story is heartbreaking, and I'm so, so very sorry that you had to go through that. I truly believe that God uses trauma and pain in our lives to teach others and to move us ahead and to
Yes.
better the lives of other people and ourselves in the future. And so I know He has done that in my life on many occasions, and I've been angry at God and I have,
Oh,
why did this happen? But we just don't see the big picture. And in the
right.
end, as things started coming back around, I knew that I had to be in that position in order to understand what I needed to know to get me to this point.
Exactly. Exactly. And a lot of people have said that some of the state representatives don't have compassion.
Yeah, yes.
and they don't understand what a victim goes through, or what they don't have empathy at all, and
Right.
no sympathy. Yeah, no empathy and no sympathy. And that's something that, if people without empathy don't need to be in office.
No.
They just
And I
don't.
think, politics is a very difficult, cold, surrounding. And I think some people probably go there with the right intentions, but if you are not grounded and have a good relationship with God, it's easy to lose yourself in
Yes,
that environment and to, yeah, like you said, just turn off all emotions and just kind of go on robotic mode, into,
right. Yeah. Now
yeah,
I've met some amazing, amazing representatives and senators down in Austin. I mean, some of them have been amazing. Yeah, I still keep in touch with their offices with them. So yeah, they have been wonderful. But then there's some that we need to, you know, try to
yep,
find a replacement.
that's right. People need to run against them. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so tell us, when the elections are and what people need to
So
do. And
the primaries are in March, and we need to get people there to vote for the primaries, and that is decides on who's going to be Republican, running for the Republican side, and who's going to run for the Democrat side. And if there's a runoff, it will be in May. Hopefully there won't be, but if there is, um, I'd rather there be a runoff than me not be the candidate. I'm just kidding.
right,
But
right.
if there's a runoff, it will be in May, but the main election's in November.
Okay, yeah. Oof. And November will be here. Like it's gonna be crazy.
Well, it'll be
Even
next year.
I
It'll
know,
be
but it
even
just
that,
seems
yeah.
like it just goes so fast.
I know, it's crazy.
Because March will be, I mean, like we're gonna blink our eyes and Christmas will be gone and March will be here, you know?
I
I
know.
mean, it just
Yes,
happens that fast. So
exactly.
March is the first date that we need to look for. And do you have a website where people
I
can,
do. I do. It's Wells for Texas. I'm sorry,
oh,
WELLSFOR Texas, TEXAS.com.
Wells for Texas
Wellstexas.com. Yes, my
is
website is, yes.
okay. Okay.
And my
Wells
website
for
is
Texas.
Mary Louise Wells for state representative.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
Yes.
there's two different ones. And what is the
One's my
biggest?
Facebook and one's my website. Yes.
Oh, okay. I need to look you up on Facebook. I don't think I've found you on Facebook yet,
Oh,
so I'll do that.
okay. Okay.
And then what do you need the most? What do you need people to do? How can we help?
Donate money. Money. Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, it is expensive. And I knew it was, but I know God's gonna take care of it.
Yep.
So I'm not gonna worry about that, because with the faith of a
Sure.
mustard seed is what I
That's right.
and that's what I've got, is faith of a mustard seed.
That's right. He's brought you this far. He'll bring you
Yeah.
through
Do it.
in
Exactly.
miraculous ways that we could never think of anyway.
Yeah.
So
If he brings you to it, he'll bring you through it. Yes.
that's right. Okay. So we've got the websites. We need to donate. We need to go there,
Yes.
vote in March, follow you on Facebook, and
Yes.
go to the
Please.
websites to find out more information.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
is there anything else that I missed or anything else that you want to add?
Um, no, I'm running on child safety, and I'm running on anything from the food that they put in their mouths.
Mm,
Yes, because as you know, our lands are
yes.
being poisoned.
Yes,
So from the
ma'am.
food they put in their mouth to when they inherit our homes and have to pay the taxes.
That's
So
right. You were telling me a little bit about that.
yes,
Just quickly tell my audience what your thoughts are on that.
about the taxes.
Yes.
Yes, we have got to eliminate property tax. I mean, there's no way around it. People are being taxed out of their homes. We see it every
Mhm.
day. I'm a real estate broker, and
Oh,
I see it every single day as a real estate broker. People are being taxed out of their homes, and they we just need to eliminate property tax. And I do have some very bold and good ideas that are very common sense
mhm.
that I will be putting into place. And
That is
I
something else you need to talk to Pete about too, because he has some good ideas about the property taxes and he wants to eliminate them too. You guys would work so well together. I mean, we've got to get
good.
both you guys in there.
somebody told me the other day, so you've got a lot of common sense. And I said, well, it was God's gift, I guess. And he said, no, we need common sense. He said, a lot of the common sense is not very common down there right now. And I said, well, I don't think it's not common. I just think that there's a lot of blindness is
Yes.
what it is. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think in the schools, I think it starts in the schools where they kind of, used to encourage creativity and encourage kind of
yeah,
thinking outside of the box.
right.
And now they just don't. Now they want to
Yeah,
teach straight to the testing and just
exactly.
memorize. And this is
And
the way
that's
it's got to.
something else. The STAR test was supposed to have
Yep.
been taking out. Have you read
Yep.
about that? And
I don't know what the latest is.
instead of it being taken out when they pass the bill, it literally replaces it with three
Three different tests. Oh, a teacher was telling me about
a
that.
year, three a year. And it also puts, I think it's like $50 million extra. It's going to cost like $50 million extra to be done. So,
Wow. Yeah, that's.
and for us to be taking out the STAR test, which I totally agree with. So when I was growing up, we had a test every other year, and it was great. It was called standardized test,
Yeah.
and or tax test. That's what they ended up calling it.
Tax.
Yeah, they called it tax test later on, but whenever I was growing up, it was a standardized test.
Uh-huh.
And then they called it the tax test. And then now it's the STAR test. But
Hmm.
it was every other year. And
Hmm.
it was, we weren't being forced to learn just the test.
Right.
We were taught about history. You can ask some of these kids now about history, and they would be like, uh, is it on the test? No, it's
And
not.
geography and yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
even reading a Fort Worth ISD, I mean, probably half, and I used to know the exact statistic because I used to be at all the board meetings, but I mean, about half of the kids that graduate can't even read.
It's sad.
It's so, oh, it's so
But they
bad.
can
It's
pass
so
that tax test, or they can pass that STAR test.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
and and that's where it's sad. Let the teachers teach, let the students learn, and test every other year.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
That way
You
it
know,
will actually measure what they really know, just
no,
what they know, not what they've had
exactly.
to memorize in the last
Ex-
month.
Thank you. Yes, that is exactly. And one thing I'll also talk about a lot is there's two things that outside of the child safety and the taxes, that has to do with child safety is teachers are underpaid.
Oh, yeah, they are.
They are greatly underpaid, and so are police officers.
Yes.
And it's you got these police forces that I've heard of, that some of them have had to take a choice whether we're going to get an education this year or if we're going to get new equipment because it's not in the budget. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't
Mhm.
believe that should be a choice. I don't
Right.
think that the police chiefs should have to make the decision whether our people are going to get more safety or if they're going to get education. I think it should be, they shouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
don't think that officers should have to carry a second job. Most officers have to have a second job just to make ends meet.
Isn't
And
that
that's not fair.
crazy to
It
think about?
is. It is. It really is. And you think about these people that make millions of dollars to play sports,
I know.
and you look at a football, or not a football player, a police officer that's not even making,
And
45.
risking his life every single day that he goes out. Yeah.
Exactly. I think the highest that I've talked to any police force, they have started off at is like less than 60 grand. And kids can't, I mean, kids, um, people can't raise their kids on that, you know,
Not this day and age. Oof.
unfortunately, because they're being taxed out of their homes.
Yes,
So,
that's right. It is just a sad place that we
it
live in. So
is.
many things need to
It
change.
is. There is a lot of things that need to change, So those are, four of the big things that I'm running on is child safety, police officers getting raises, and the education and protection gear that they need.
Mhm.
teachers getting raises and not having
Mhm.
to teach that test and that be the only thing taught, and taxes.
All
So
right. Yeah. Man, that's some great things that really apply to every single person in Texas. It's going to affect you in one way or another. So, yeah. Wells for Texas.
thank you. Yes, wellsfortexas.com.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for taking the time to
Thank
speak with
you.
me.